What a strange old world we live in when the Giro d'Italia has been shortened. We've lost Formula One this weekend with that horrible weather, and our thoughts going out to everyone who have been affected by that down in Emilia-Romagna. Even at Indianapolis, afternoon thunderstorms, and the best weather in the sporting and motorsport world here at the Nürburgring in the Vulcan Eiffel. Nice to have your company, John Hindhaugh, along with Peter Snowden and Bruce Jones for our third qualifying session, and this for everyone other than SPX and SP9 will be setting the grid. This is their final opportunity in all of the junior classes to put down a time and set their grid position. Once this one's done, we will have an idea of who is doing what in those categories, but then we have the excitement of filling the last 6 places to make the 19 cars in the shootout later on this afternoon. It's all coming to you live and free from the Nürburgring for the 51st running of the ADAC Total Energies Nürburgring 24. Preparations going on at pace. Been a fairly easy morning for most of the teams, but not for Franz Conrad and the team. Remember, they had that incident coming on to the Dottinger last night, picking up the Cayman GT4 car, which caused the car to be stripped back to its component parts at the back. Looked like somebody had dropped a Lego kit onto the floor and it had come apart. However, Franz himself pitching in with that, as he always does. Just because he's in his 70s, it's not slowed him down at all. And leading from the front, that car is prepped, Bruce, and ready to go in this session.
It would never be any other way with Franz. I mean, he's been doing it for, let's count the decades, let's call it 5 decades, but inimitable. Yeah. And again, it's the nature of this race. And another car that we had at the side of the circuit was one of the VW Golfs. And that had its own barbecue. The fans around in the hills around the circuit were getting going, but that one was absolutely torched. We've seen it in the paddock, sitting there forlornly. If there was anything on the front end of that car that could melt, it has. But a new car has been built up. It was still being completed when we went past about an hour and a half ago. And wait to see whether that one gets out onto the circuit. But certainly just the sort of setbacks that the teams from the very top, John, of the table, right down to the lowest classes, just do not want. And Peter, you, having walked through paddocks, race cars for a couple of years now, and then a few more, that was what we call Scorchio, I believe.
Absolutely, absolutely so. Yeah, it's just, I mean, the weather here, it's just, as John just said, Grand Prix cancelled because of rain. Thunderstorms at Indy, and here at Nürburgring, the one place we say the weather always has the final say. Always has the final say. Today, it's saying, look at me.
Yes. And it has been all week, which is great for the campers. Been chilly overnight. It was quite chilly again last night. The little cloud cover that we had cleared off, and that left a fairly chilly evening for the hundreds of thousands of campers here. Found out this morning, actually, talking to one of the officials here at the Nürburgring, that as of yesterday afternoon, the campsites were full. They are not selling any more camping for the usual campsites. They are all full. Negotiations going on as we speak, yesterday and this morning, to find overflow spots from local landowners. You can still buy a ticket to come in and watch from trackside at various places around the Nürburgring, Nordschleife, and of course here on the Grand Prix. But as of yesterday afternoon, there was no room at the inn, Bruce. Extraordinary. 250,000 people reported to be around this circuit.
You know what? It's just fantastic. Not just the sun shining, but to have it full, as it was in those years before the pandemic. Many, many years. And the history, this is the 51st running of the Nürburgring 24 Hours. It's been not feast and famine, but it hasn't always been uniformly packed with teams as it is now. And the quality at the top end in the SP9 class is phenomenal. Right, cars on the track, an hour and a quarter of running. And John, just to reiterate, this is not top qualifying. That comes later.
Correct.
But this is for everybody else below SP9, which is the top class.
So this will set the grid for other than SP9 and SPX. They are the only two categories that go forward, and we still yet have to work out who the 19 cars. 13 cars have already qualified from their performances in the early NLS rounds and in the two qualifying races we had, the 2 and the 4 hour race that we had, getting on for 3 weeks, nearly a month ago now, isn't it? They will be designated on the screen with the dark blue underneath the car graphic, or the blue flag on the timing screen. The light blue for the number 6, which was the quickest car up to yesterday. Now that is a Pro-Am car, and there is a space reserved for Pro-Am, so that provisionally, as of right now, would take the Pro-Am spot. If that was a Pro car sitting there with that time, it wouldn't be guaranteed a spot until the end of this session, of course, but that is a car that at the moment is in prime position to take the Pro-Am. This is the number 6 Mercedes-AMG we're talking about. The darker blue means that they are in already, and if there's no colour or it's black, then that means they are not in. But this could still qualify in the next session. And note, in second position on the timing screens, the Manthey car is not qualified for the final top qualifying 2. It will be Kevin Estre who will go out in the first of the qualifying sessions. If that happens and they do get a position, because you can't use the same driver, then it's Fred Makovic, who will take the car to set its grid position. It would be a minor disaster for the most local of local teams not to get in. All of the Porsche 992 GT3s have had a significant change in BOP yesterday. Weight added, power taken away, and most importantly for the Porsche, a 9-degree change in rake angle to pull the back of the car up a bit. Now that is not a natural situation for a Porsche 911. That car is actually homologated to be a slightly nose up in its rake, plus extra angle on the rear wing, and this presumably, Peter, this will be the first time that they'll be trying that, and that is not just for the Manthey team, that's all of the teams with that new 911, that GT3R Type 992.
Yeah, I mean, you say 20 kilos added, 9 degrees of rake, and 2.5 degrees added to the rear wing. It's all a lot. What I find extraordinary about all of that is that it was done middle of a session.
Yeah.
So to me, and across all the Porsche runners, to me there's something smacks of. It's almost like a punishment, as in has somebody been trying something else? I've never ever had a balance of performance issued midway through a session. Never seen it done. So it's almost, there's got to be a reason for that. I don't know. I'm not the officials, but it just seems a very odd thing. You're saying the car's not qualified there. The top 3 cars are not qualified.
On the times
at the moment as they stand.
Well,
it's quite incredible.
The top one would, if things stay as they are, the top one, the Mercedes number 6, that would go through as the Pro-Am, as the top Pro-Am. So that's why it's got the lighter blue on the TV graphics, but that isn't duplicated on the online scoring.
So, John, just to clarify, 3 Pro-Am runners have qualified thus far.
Correct.
There are 8 in all, so there are 5 Pro-Am crews going for that final Pro-Am position. At the moment, I can talk about this team. It's around lunchtime. Schnitzelarm Racing, not
Excellent.
one, but both of their Mercedes. That's cars 10 and 11 have gone through, and the number 100 Walkenhorst Motorsport BMW is also in the pound seats. That is in. So just remember, 5 Pro-Am crews in this session trying to get that final position. Hour and a quarter in which to do it. But just going back to Porsche and trying to work with their balanced performance changes, isn't it fortunate for them at least we've got dry weather conditions? Do you think how many Nürburgrings you're trying to do it on a track that changes every 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, can you imagine doing all those changes overnight, as you said, John? Not a natural position for a Porsche 911. As you said, but virtually the rear, leave the engine in and take everything else off. Rear subframe, start again. It's caster, it's camber, it's toe in, it's everything. rebuild it, and then thank goodness it didn't rain, because you've got it all set up. It's it's the same for everybody, I know, but it's an awful lot to change your car.
So the reason we've got that lighter blue indicator on the number 6 car is because this is a session in which that car can qualify, because the fastest Pro-Am car during Q1, Q2 or Q3, now this is Q3, the last 5 positions will come from top Q1, and they are the top positions of any car that's taking place. So just remember that for it. It seems unnecessarily complicated, I know, and we've been through the 7 pages of regulations to tell us how people got the top 13 positions already, and without a word of a lie, we're none the wiser. To be honest, I will go through them now before we start getting times coming in. So qualified through to the final shootout, so top Q2 is the termination here, but just think of it as the final shootout that will set the top 19 positions. Are 33 Falcon Porsche, 30 Fricatelli Ferrari, the BMW Junior Team number 72, Audi Sport Team Lant 39, Lion Speed by Car Collection Motorsport Porsche number 24, the Mercedes AMG Team Bilstein from AMG, of course, the number 4 car, the number 3 AMG from Team Get Speed, AB Sportsline number 27 Lamborghini, the Falcon Motorsport number 44 Porsche. Oh, we've got both their cars in, well done. The Rover Racing BMW, but just one of them. That's the 99 car. 10 and 11, the GT3 AMGs of Schnitzelarm Racing, and the 100 Valkenhorst Motorsport car. They are the 13 cars who have pre-qualified into the final shootout. They are not allowed to go out in the first part of the shootout. They have to keep their powder dry. Full tanks for everybody in both of the knockout super sessions, if you will. And you can't use, if you are in Q1, you can't use the same driver if you get through to Q2.
Just listen to the onboard of Kevin Astra there, John, in the 911, well, the best way of calling it, Grello. Quite extraordinary, with a bit of it going down through Foxhole and up to Adenauer Force, and a series of lefts and rights there, and just leaving it in the one gear. We were talking about this yesterday, going through the carousel you commented on, the load on that transmission. It's got sufficient torque in that Porsche. You don't need to do a change and back again, save the gearbox, but just leaving it on gear, you can just listen to that, the torque in that engine. Almost, I would say it was almost too low revs.
It sounded like that, didn't it? The change from the 4 litre to just under 4.2 litres of that flat 6, venerable flat 6, normally aspirated engine, was exactly for that reason, Snowy. Not for more power. In fact, it makes exactly the same power as the 4 litre unit did last year. It's all about mid-range torque, about that pulling power in the mid-range.
Well, there was a very famous engine builder.
More drivable.
Nicholson, as in John Nicholson, McLaren, always said to us, horsepower sells engines, torque wins races. And it's, what is it, especially in something like this. Sorry, I mean to cut across you.
No. I mean, it is a truism that in the top trump world of people talking about their cars, you might sit having a lemonade sometime and talk about your horsepower figures. And somebody once said to me, everybody talks about horsepower, but they drive torque.
Exactly.
And that makes the drivability of a car. And that can be a very different equation indeed from, I've got 50 horsepower more than you, I've got 75 horsepower more than the both of you. Yeah, but I might only have my 500 horsepower, but I've got half as much again.
But power's absolutely nothing without traction.
Correct.
And that's where your torque comes from. And as you said earlier about the cream rising to the top of the drivers, the drivers that can maximise that torque and work out where to use it on there. And as you said, that little bit of footage we just heard there, it almost sounded like it was, I'm not saying it was stalling, but it feels low for a racing car on a qualifying lap. But it's not, because Kevin Astra knows he's going to work it through there, and it's smooth. When you get to that exit, even the modern gearboxes now, which You don't have a chance of missing a gear because it all does it for you these days. But you don't want that risk anyway.
No.
So just leave it in the gear, concentrate on what you're doing, bandwidth of the brain, use the capacity, away you go.
And also, this is a 24-hour race. And yes,
and this isn't the race.
And this is not the race. It's not even the qualifying for those cars. They need to get the setup in this session that they're going to feel comfortable with. And Kevin, at the moment, is building a setup on full tanks that he can go out and do 1, possibly 2 fast laps that will be good enough to be in the top 5 cars at the end of Q1. Because if he's not, they're going to be at best in starting in 20th position, and that could be, Bruce, a world of trouble for a team that we absolutely associate with being the sharp end of the field.
100% so, but the thing is, I just think back through racing history when you had in the early 80s when McLaren failed to qualify either of their cars for somewhere like Monaco. But that was with a car that just was completely out of sorts. But this is a car that's been given its chance. But the Porsche crews up and down the paddock this morning when Peter Snowden and I were walking around, it was the Porsche crews who were working the hardest. They were still trying to work out where, how, what to do to get the rake angle. That was the one that really piqued my interest.
Yeah.
A 2.5 degree change of wing angle is one thing, but the whole concept...
9 degrees.
9 degrees.
9 degrees of rake. Yeah.
But
That's phenomenal.
You know, normally... when you see a team and it's all Alison Ordnung and they're all just going through their strides, but this way around they were clearly quite vexed, just trying to work out where to fix these extra units of ballast, and it's a lot of ballast to put in. Kevin Estre, I don't know too much about him, joking, you know, he young French fellow, so I believe, but obviously a winner of this event 2 years ago, but to have a gold standard team with an absolute gold standard driver lineup, of course the quick times will come next time around. This is always the thing that throws us with races on the Nordschleife. It takes an age to get a proper...
8.27 on an outlap's not too shabby either.
No,
but this session is all about data collection for these Porsche runners.
He's got an 8.13.4 to his name,
but not in this setup.
We don't think so.
No, that was yesterday.
We don't think so, because, as you say, Snowy, the notification came through part of the way through Q2. I've also been told that this riddle of why we're seeing so many of the top cars before every session going to scrutineering bay. I've never seen anything like it. There was a queue there earlier on when I was coming back over from the infield. It is because so much of the setup is part of the balance of performance. So we're talking ride height, we're talking rake, we're talking wing angle.
Yeah, the officials are monitoring absolutely everything.
Correct.
They are measuring and measuring everything.
And the teams do not want to go out and find that they are out of the parameters of their balance of performance. You can put a car on your own flat patch down at the bottom of the paddock.
Yeah, but yours aren't the official ones.
No.
Yeah, exactly. It's not your scales.
And there's no right of reply or right of appeal. You can't say, yeah, but on ours it says we're all right. It says our ride height's okay.
Just watching there, John, watching Kevin Estre again, just going down into the Goodyear curve on the GP circuit there, and he wasn't going in particularly quickly into that corner, but there was an absolute bucket full of mid-corner understeer in the middle of that, and it just makes you wonder if they're still coming to terms with grip of that. I bet he's on the radio, because it wasn't like he overdid it. Understeer, Rob Gravitt, British touring car driver, used to always famously say, understeer's called by one thing, the driver. I don't think Kevin Estre did that there. I think he's still trying to get his head round how this car, Grello, he knows so well, is suddenly, its rear end is totally different.
Yeah, seeing him actually slightly earlier in the lap, down at the Dunlop hairpin, Dunlop Carrot just did not want to turn in. That front was washing towards the fans on the outside of the circuit, took 2 bites of the cherry.
Can we have in-car radio on here and get to hear what he's actually saying?
I probably think that we didn't want to hear that. Yeah. The good news is we mentioned the Conrad Lamborghini Huracan. This is the earlier version of the car, not the Evo. The car we said was fixed. That has been confirmed because it's now out on the track. What I can't tell you yet is... Oh, yes, I can. It's Axel Jeffries.
Yeah, well, of course, he knows that car supremely well. He knows the Nürburgring Nordschleife supremely well. But one thing I just want to draw your eye to, Fabian Schiller is absolutely flying. He's got the ultimate fastest first sector, second sector, third sector, personal best in sector number 4.
Just come out of Brunchen.
And he's in the number 2 team Get Speed Mercedes. That's the one that's almost effectively diagonally red and black according to which way you're standing. But Fabian last weekend, one of a cluster that was out racing in rather warmer climes with me in out at Buriram in Thailand. And actually, I meant to draw up a little chart. Who came from where from their races last weekend? Jordan Love, one of the works drivers for Mercedes, I'm fairly convinced was racing in Phillip Island. He probably gets the prize for the
Could be the longest.
the furthest distance in here. But again, it's the global draw of the Nürburgring.
Laguna Seca as well, of course, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for IMSA, and there's a few drivers come from there. A couple of people asking last night, by the way, we did mention this, but it's already popping up at RSL_studio, hashtag RSLN24. Nick Tandy, where's Nick? Well, Nick is rather busy with his call up to Le Mans. The third works Porsche Penske Motorsport car was perhaps not, well, it wasn't going to be going, and the American drivers weren't going to be going to Le Mans. But I think the fact that Christian Reed decided not to take up his entry with his 963, wants to do more testing in before that car hits the track, and we believe we'll see it at the Sealant 6 Hours of the Glen in early July in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. That meant that there was an opportunity for Porsche to put another car in. Now, why has Nick not just come here? Because Nick hasn't driven the specification of Porsche 963 that runs in the WEC. Most of the cars that are running in WEC and IMSA have very small details that are different. They're slightly more draggy in the WEC because of the baseline wind tunnel is the Hinwil at Audi Formula One, Audi Sauber, whereas in the States it's at wind shear in North Carolina. However, Porsche being Porsche saw the opportunity to homologate 2 different sets of bodywork, and the WEC bodywork is subtly but noticeably different, and Nick hasn't driven the WEC spec car, so he's doing some testing in that prior to Le Mans and Le Mans Test Day, which is first weekend in June. We'll have that live for you, exclusively live for you on Radio Le Mans.
There aren't enough weekends in the year,
there aren't,
frankly, particularly when we've got a host of manufacturers developing new cars. What has just developed there, I mentioned that Fabian Schiller in the Get Speed Mercedes was picking up the pace. He went from 21st overall, and he's put the first quick time of this session, and he's moved up to 3rd place overall. He's
nice.
0.501 of a second down on still the fastest time, still in the hands of another Mercedes driver, which is Arjun Maini, who the Indian driver flying in the number 6 Team Bilstein Mercedes AMG. But now we're starting to see the quick times coming in, and just to reiterate, we've got 13 cars qualified so far for the qualifying shootout, but that number 2 Mercedes is one of a host that have not done a time that was good enough before.
Some big names to be in there, and with only the top 5 going through from Q1, there's going to be some disappointed drivers and teams at the end of the first shootout. And I mean, anyone from, what is it? It's over a dozen, isn't it? That are still to qualify for those 5 places. Hello to Blur Fiends in the workshop, working on Porsches. No more mid-session laptops, BOP changes, sorry, laptops. BOP changes, hopefully. And I think all of the bags of potatoes are in the right place at the moment. The second place for the number 911, but will they be able to, it's the car he's supporting, will they be able to get something like the performance that they got yesterday? 8:13.469.
Ferrari fans, the 296 obviously still the newest of the GT3 cars. Good news for them, because just up into 4th place now, one of the other cars that hasn't put a quick time in until now, that's the WTM by Rinaldi Racing 296 GT3. Looks exquisite, looks even better when Daniel Kalvitz is at the wheel. So he has moved up to 4th place. He's 1.5 seconds down on the ultimate pace still. So we've got the top 3 covered by as close to as can be just half a second. The rest, though, they are closing in and up and down the charts. As John pointed out, we've still got a lot of top names that have to hook one together to work their way towards the front. Did we mention Kevin Estre?
Yeah.
He's a flying. Personal best in sector 1, 2, 3. Ultimate in sector 4. Personal best in 5, 6 and 7. And he's working his way through the sequence. The target time, let's just say it now, 8 minutes 13.190 seconds. The final twisters ahead of Kevin Estre. Car in front, pushing up the earth into his face, but he's going to be close to, well, he's certainly going to be in the top 10 now at least.
Giving a nice little toe onto the straight there as well, just for that few moments through Tiergarten.
The last 2 sectors, he lost out fairly big time. If he'd hooked together the best lap, that would have been enough to put him second fastest overall. He'd be down just 0.06 of a second down on the best lap we've seen. But at the end, backing off, a bit of traffic along Döttinger-Höhe, more to the point, just before Döttinger-Höhe, really hurt him. And now it looks he's out on the first lap of a race. There must be 8 cars between him and between effectively turns 3 and turn 4 as he goes down the hill.
Yeah, but it's the wide part of the circuit, the GP circuit, you can get around all those cars a bit easier.
So, for reference, that car yesterday did an 8:13.4. That was nearly 5 seconds slower than the car went yesterday before the balance of performance changes. Now, is a point being made here? Is this Porsche and their, you know, I mean, Manthey is now owned by Porsche. So, you know, is this a point that's being made? Are they staring at the moment pointedly at race control, standing underneath and looking up at them from the pit lane and sort of, you know, giving them a Paddington stare? I don't know.
Like 5 seconds, really?
5 seconds.
5 seconds?
Really?
Yeah, but what we saw was until the final 2 sectors, it was improving in every sector. And what's the final 2 sectors covering? We talked about the rake, 9 degrees plus,
drag
going all the way along Döttinger-Höhe with that extra rake. That's got to be.
It's drag.
And the wing.
It's just drag. Hasn't got the terminal speed, has it?
Yeah.
No.
We know that the Porsches are seldom the fastest in a straight line in GT specification. Therefore, that's not helped that situation. We'll have a wander back down and I'll see if we can, after this and a bite to eat, we'll have a wander back into the pit lane before the next session and see if we can have a word with one of the Porsche teams in the SP9 category and just ask them how much work that was.
Just looking up and down the charts, very few of the Porsche runners have set a flying lap in this. Kevin Estre did the 8 minutes 18. There's an 8 minutes 15.495 from another Porsche. It's car 54. It's Laurens Vanthoor. It's in the Dynamic GT entry. He's sharing with Lorin Heinrich, Ayhancan Güven, the Flying Turk, and Christian Engelhardt. So that is there or thereabouts in this session. And of course, different teams will be doing adjusting their performance accordingly.
Jordan Love, by the way, was at Brands Hatch last weekend.
Of course he was. He was in the sprint series. He did the first 2 rounds, I think. I think he did the one in Western Australia, in GT World Challenge Australia. Oh, I bigged him up for the longest journey.
From Brands Hatch compared to Phillip Island?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both got 2 words in their title.
Geography wasn't his strong point at school.
Hello to James Powell. His Friday afternoon sorted. Hybrid working, plus N24. And the dulcet tones of RSL Studio team. We're live in sound and vision, James. Hopefully you can pick that up if you've got an extra screen and plenty of bandwidth. If your bandwidth's challenged or you're moving around, we don't want you watching pictures while you're in the car, then RS1 via radiolemans.com and the Listen Live button. If you want the video, you can also go there. There's a Nürburgring 2023 page, and the link to the world feed is on there. It's all free. No interruptions, no blocks, no breaks. The audio remains unchanged for the whole weekend, including the race. There are a couple of exceptions to that on the video, one notably being North America, speedsport1.com, but that is a free service for the race on Saturday. And French speakers rather bundled together a few of those countries. France, Belgium and Luxembourg will be looked after with a French service All the details are online. Automoto is the service for you French speakers, and that will kick off just before the race start on Saturday. But the rest of the sessions all day today we'll have here for you.
I think, John, it's worth reiterating, trying to explain top qualifying all over again, because if anyone just happens to be joining us, having followed your example about where to find the timing screen, they'll see a blue band, the highest placed blue band, which means a car that's qualified to go to the top qualifying is only in 10th position on our time charts, which seems like a massive anomaly. Still, the fastest time was set not in one of the qualifying sessions, effectively, to get a top place, and that's still Arjun Maini, 8 minutes 13.19. But now, in fact, all of the top 10 have failed to qualify.
Except
so
because the Maini car is a Pro-Am. It does qualify in these first three. So that's a further complication. So as it stands right now, if this session was to be called, that car would take position 14 in the 19 for qualifying 2, because that is reserved for a Pro-Am car.
So we have 3 Pro-Ams that have qualified for shootout, and the 4th is up for grabs, and at the moment it's sitting pretty.
Correct. So that one at the moment is qualifying through the time that it put in yesterday in Q2. Any car from SPX or SP9 Pro or SP9 Am can fill the remaining 5 places once we go to Q1. It still doesn't sound very simple, but honestly, that's the easiest I can make it sound and the fewest words I can use.
I think you did
try
well.
And describe
very
it.
well there, John.
I don't get paid by the word. Here comes Mike Rockenfeller in the number 40 Audi down the Dottinger Her. That car sitting in 21st position for Audi Sport Team Scherer PHX. PHX and Scherer coming together of Phoenix, who have a fine record for Audi and Scherer Motorsport.
Yeah, I mean, their record as Phoenix Racing in the Nürburgring 24 Hours is absolutely rock solid. In a race of so many variables, weather, sheer number of cars, they just had win after win. And what I love about here is the fact that because of these many, many variables, John, it's very difficult for any team to get a run of victories.
Yes.
Last year's winners as well.
There you have it, Phoenix Racing last year.
Just throw it in.
No, it's good. Kelvin van der Linde, Dries van Tor, Fred Vervies and Robin Freins.
Fred Vervies being the only one in the lineup in the same car this time round.
Yep.
That lineup from last year's winners.
Some of the lineups do take a bit of exploration.
Yeah.
We're just talking about the number 40 Scherer PHX Audi. That's the one for the former DTM champions with Timo Scheider, Martin Tomczyk and Mike Rockenfeller.
10 titles between them, wasn't it, or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
They
DTM.
gathered, they collected.
Yeah. Talking of driver lineups with the Porsche data collection session, I'm going to call this now for easier, is they've switched the 911 Grille, they've switched to Michael Christensen. I've kind of got this vision, and I'm just guessing that Kevin Estres parked it in the pits and goes, I don't understand it, you have a go.
Yes.
Alexander Sims
Yeah,
behind.
5 seconds off. Yeah, have a go, Michael. See what you can make of it.
Alexander Sims behind the wheel of the Scherer number 5 blue and white Audi. He's getting a change of Michelin rubber. They look like they've been used, and they look like they may have rubbed something, because some of the Michelin decals on the outside of the left-hand side tyres.
But the important thing about this car, John, is the fact that it's just recently moved up to 2nd place overall. It's just moved ahead of the 911 Manthey car. It's faster by 0.02 of a second, but it's actually marginally irrelevant at the moment. But they're clearly looking very good. Audi sort of had a bit of a smile on their face this weekend. Yes, they came here as reigning champions from last year, but at the moment looking very well balanced.
The Aston Martin Vantage GMR GT4 is the second Dumoulin Aston Martin to be pinged for pit lane speeding, so they will lose their fastest time. This is the number 79 car. It was the 68 car yesterday that transgressed and got times deleted. So 8:13.467, that new time for the number 5 Audi of Scherer Sport PHX, straight back into the pits. don't have to do another lap round the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So Alex Sims, happy with that, peels through the old Coca-Cola curve and back into the pit lane, and they were checking his tyres and his tyre pressures.
One car that we see an awful lot of in the Nürburgring Langstrecken Series race is the number 72. It's the BMW Junior team lineup, and go across the decades, BMW have always supported junior drivers. They brought on absolutely phalanxes of them. But Dan Harper, Max Hess and Neil Verhagen have raced together. This is their third year together. They are super, super quick. At the moment they're down in 16th place, but this lap about to be completed by the driver from Northern Ireland, from Dan Harper, and I'm sure that's going to put that right up in the mix. But you know what? They've already got a place in the top qualifying shooter, so they're fine. 8 minutes 21, no improvement there. Actually, stays in 16th place, but they've got blue. They don't have to worry too much. This is a setup session.
Again, a slow final sector for that, improving all the way until the last sector. Now, which way is the wind blowing today?
It's blowing from behind the Dorrance Hotel across the track, so it's effectively going to the northwest.
So it's a
coming from the southeast.
Crosswind. It was pretty much behind the cars going down the Dodigahoe yesterday. It's come round a wee bit, but not very much. Danny Sufi is behind the wheel of the Conrad Lamborghini Huracan. This is the car that was rebuilt overnight. It's in 22nd position in SP9. Left front tyre issue for one of the Mini Coopers.
One of the Bulldog Racing Mini Coopers, with, of course, Cooper of Cooper on board. It's in 108th position overall.
I think that's the 112.
Is it 112? Yeah.
112.
112. Yes.
112.
Yeah. At the last time we posted, it's lost a timing position since then, so it's down to 109th at the moment in the charts. And it's left its tyre carcass tidily at the edge of the circuit there. So 109 at the moment, being driven by... Sorry, I paused there.
Yeah, that's this going off. Actually, completely lost the carcass of the tyre.
It's
Marcus Fisher. Sorry,
yeah, from Birdling in Austria. Danny Brink, Marcus Uwe Krumscheid and Marco Zabel. And as we mentioned, their second car has a Cooper in it, and it is the same family. What else would they be driving?
Always good to see that Conrad Lamborghini out on track.
Good.
Those amazing colours. I still call them Vitaphone Maserati colours. You know why? It reminds me of those days, of those cars.
Leighton
that colour scheme.
Almost.
Yes, Leighton House Formula One back in the day. But
nice.
so all the better to see it out there from
Miami Blue.
Miami Blue, they called it, didn't they? Leighton House. I think it was my first or second Le Mans, so I've been 89 or 90. They had a car there, and all I ever wanted. A bit later than that. No, it must have been early. All I ever wanted was a Leighton House Miami Blue paddock jacket. I thought they were the coolest things ever. In fairness, it was the end of the 80s or the beginning of the 90s. I'm not sure I could pull that off now, if I'm absolutely honest.
It's bad.
Of course you could.
When you do retro, but just in the wrong time.
Yeah.
You're 2 years ahead of yourself.
Was it?
Or 24 behind. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
months.
So, good to see Franz here again, such a supporter of endurance racing. Still does a bit of driving himself, very handy driver in his pomp, and was doing a bit of LMP3 racing fairly recently. And
was that in the German Prototype Cup, I think it was? Because he's got a couple of Ginettas, I think, entered this year, so I believe that's the case. But, you know, you can't get him away from a race circuit.
And he managed, we saw him at Spa, on one of the Creventic race weekends, and he's managed to enlist the help of one Ralf Juttner, who is apparently retired. I'm not working. Then what are you doing on a grid, Ralph? Well, I'm sort of
holidaying in the Ardennes. Yeah.
Yes, I'm just sort of helping out. Who are you helping out? Franz Conrad. Oh, are you? But you're not working. No, I've just come down to see him. I've known him for years. Yes. Okay. Is that oil under your fingernails there, Franz?
Yeah.
Ralf Juttner, if you don't recognise the name, Team Yost and Audi, part of that extraordinary run of victories in the Le Mans 24 Hours that started with the R8, the R10, the R15, and what a character. Huge and very British sense of humour. Big Eddie Izzard fan, and what a phenomenal character he was in the paddocks of the American Le Mans Series in the late 90s and early 2000s, and a complete contrast to his boss, Reinhold Jost, who you could barely get a word out, and when you did, it was short, sharp, and to the point. You could have talked to Ralph pretty much all day and still not get to the cars, the questions you really want to ask. You'd be talking about everything else. A bon vivant of the first order. I miss him in the paddock.
We were talking about changing of the guard yesterday, weren't we? Some of the teams that have changed have been loyal to a certain brand and changed and whatever. Just watching or listening to Dries Vanthoor, one of last year's winners, synonymous with Audi Phoenix, as Shearer as it is now, and now in a BMW M4, so totally different type of car, so front engine. Watching that M4 there, Dries Vanthoor, obviously no slouch around here, he won it last year in an Audi. That M4 does not look particularly stable out there at the moment, that particular one, the Rover Racing one. So I'm sure that'll put a smile on Dan Harper's face in the junior team one. Their car looks absolutely glued to the track. The Rover one, not so at the moment.
That's car 98 you're talking of there.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, Dan Harper is in his third season with the BMW M4 GT3. That helps. And I still find it funny that, for years, Dries Vanthoor was at the back of the team WTR garage while Lawrence was doing the racing, big brother Lawrence, and then he stepped up and was just immediately on the pace. Class winner at Le Mans, of course. Victor here, but yeah, that big change with Vincent Voss's team moving across this weekend. Of course, they're not here, but for Rover Racing, how many miles, how many kilometres, how many laps has that team done around here with its various manufacturers, with Porsches in years gone by, but now with BMWs.
Just to run down a few other times that are changing in different classes. The 1, 2, 3, that's Alex Brundle's car. Mühlner Motorsport Porsche GT3 Cup, the 992. That's a new fastest time in class. And of course, this is their final qualifying session. So the 1, 2, 3 provisionally on pole for Mühlner in the 992 Cup class, an 8:29.4 set last time around. Huber Motorsports 992 GT3R 8:21.3. That's now 32nd in SP9. That was improved last time around. 8:21.2 for Valkenhorst, Sami Matti Trogen in the number 100. That was their best time. So we are seeing some performance. Durr Motorsport with the number 69 car. That now in 27th position. And that was a fastest time for them. The Falcon 44 already qualified, of course, 8:17.431. Now, the SP9s really don't matter other than the best AM car, which is still the top of the shop for number 6 AMG. But these other categories really do. GT4 improvement for the Toyota GR Supra Evo. This is the Toyota with Ring Racing number 71, and that's driven by Lance David Arnold. He's now second in SP10, which is GT4. 905.945, an improvement for the number 89 Haupt Racing Team AMG. GT4 takes them to 10th in class, and this is the last chance for all of these classes. W&S Motorsports Porsche Cayman GT4 in the Cup 3 class has just improved to 8th in that category with a 927 at 197. 944 Adrenaline Motorsport now second in V6 with the Cayman S. 944.235 against the number 396. 953.929 from the 242. That is now 5th for the BMW 240i class, another Adrenaline car. And Volker Strajcek just goes to the top of SP3 for the Opel Manta with a 959.284, breaking that magic 10-minute barrier in the returning Foxtail Manta. Adrenaline Motorsports, we've talked about QTQ Race Performance 330i. The number 526 is now the best time for them. Second for the VT2 rear-wheel drive category. 10:08.933. That's an improvement for Adrenaline's 330i. That's 5th in that VT2 rear-wheel drive category. And a bunch of improvements further down the field for MSG, Bayerscher, Wald, 531. That takes them to 6th in class. 1037, 9th in class for SRS Zorg Rennsport. But at the top at the moment, quick times coming in for the Abt Sport line Lamborghini Huracan, which is now pitted. That's Kelvin van der Linde behind the wheel of that car, I think, when it came in. 8:13.696. 8:14 for 2:43 for Frickadelli and Nicky Katzberg. That was that car's best time. 8:14.323 for Maro Engel and the Green Hell Mercedes number 3. So there's performance out there for those SPX cars. If you're not qualified, it hasn't made a blind bit of difference, but there's data being gathered here, Bruce, for either Q1 shootout or Q2 top shootout.
133 cars have been out to play this weekend. So far, only 115 this session. Still 18 cars have yet to go out on the track. I was just taking a look to see if the Golf that was replaced, the number 112, had gone out to play. Sorry, the 108 car.
108, yeah.
108, the MSC Sinzig car. That was absolutely torched last night. Drove pretty much down to the bottom of the Grand Prix loop. Pulled over, already on fire, and it really caught hold. And the guys there are still putting the new car together. They've got mitigating circumstances, but I'm surprised that 17 other crews have yet to put their cars out on the tarmac.
Another driver change in the 911 Porsche. I can't see who just jumped into that a moment to see Kevin Estre and Michael Christensen have a go. So we've got either Thomas Preining or Federico Makovecchi in that car now. Again, as we're saying, data collection, somebody else. Another part of that, of course, is all 3-4 of you get to drive it. Now come back and then have a debrief and sit down and go, what do you think? And that's how they'll collectively say, well, because you've got to find a setup that works for all 4 drivers.
Entirely that, but also, again, just to point out the obvious is the fact that they're all doing it on a circuit that is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
It's interesting. BMW just came past and literally stopped by the pit wall, and they got going again.
Radio's not working. I'm just shouting at you because my radio's not working.
Yes.
Julian Andlar going very slowly. This is a left rear puncture in the Rutronic blue and yellow car. He shares with Dennis Olsen and Matteo Cairoli, and that is a very long way from home.
Now, this is always a bit you actually hate as a driver because, as we said yesterday, no matter how slowly you drive it, it's probably still too fast. You don't want to do collateral damage and damage bodywork and flailing and inner wheel arches, and you can do brake lines and all sorts of things in there, and sensors and whatever. But more to the point, then I'll come back to
Aston Martin. Avoiding him has gone off. That's the 68 car, the white Aston. I think he's just gone off avoiding that slow machine.
Not sure if at the same part of the track, but it's certainly gone off and
well, there was a white Aston that went past him and threw up dirt.
Here we go.
Oh no, he's
just hit the curb on his own.
On his own, and that, as you rightly say, Pete, is earlier on, and that's pulled the car to the right. That's on the Hatzenbach.
Yeah.
So that was another white Aston that went past him. How's that for a coincidence?
Okay, well, that was Stefan Kentemich, the 68 Door Motorsport SP10 Aston Martin, but that was as near on as completely side on. The track was turning to the right.
It's come to a halt now. It's come to a halt.
Front right-hand corner kissed the
more than kissed
the barriers with passion.
That was a full date. That was. That's progress impaired now.
Certainly
progress impaired. It is. Yeah. In fact, it has a negative progress quotient at the moment. I think you'll find that at the moment. That's going to need...
Is that a 0 forward delta?
Yeah, absolutely. Zero forward delta. That's even better.
I don't know where that just came from.
That's
that just appeared.
Yeah.
Modern.
It's a gift. It's a gift.
You can pass that one on. That's very good.
Right, yellow flag at Hoch-Eichen. So part way around the circuit. Was that for the...
Oh, no, so that was in the same... No, so that was in the same place.
At Hatzenbach. So the 68 Aston's off at Hatzenbach at the end of, Hoch-Eichen, that's
further out.
That's going to be that's probably going to be for the Porsche potentially.
No, that I think was for the that was for the Aston that went into the warm.
Yeah, that's at Hatzenbach.
Yes. And Hoch-Eichen is at the end of the Hatzenbach as you go over the top and down towards
Yeah, to be honest,
Back
just trying to find the 96 Rutronic Porsche, it has completed the first 6 timing sectors, so it should be getting towards turning through Galgenkopf to have the long limp home back to the pits. Meanwhile, everyone else is starting to pick up the pace.
That's full code 60 now for the Aston at Hatzenbach.
Well, the Grello Porsche, the Manthey Racing Porsche, car number 911, still waiting to see who's taken over from Michael Christensen. That's sitting in the pit lane, up on the jacks in the, can I say it again? The bright spring sunshine. I'll go for this.
Beautiful. This from Roxy Skarsgård. What's the criteria for a driver to be granted a Nordschleife permit to race in this event? I assume it's just a bit harder than turning up and asking for one. Lots of different answers online. Well, first of all, this didn't used to be the case. It's still, well, I was going to say it's relatively recent, but relatively recent in my lifetime is probably in the last 10 years. You have to come and do a course at the track, which involves classroom sessions, going out around the circuit, being shown around the circuit, some sim work, and then some lappery of the circuit under supervision. That will get you your basic ring permit, and you can drive quite a lot of classes of cars for that. But if you want to come and do SP9 or SPX in the Nürburgring 24 hours, you then have to complete. I think it's 14 laps, but it's about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Of a 4-hour race. You can get 2 drivers through just about in the 4 hours.
In an NLS round.
In an NLS round. And you don't necessarily have to do them concurrently in a contiguous manner, but you've got to log the time up. The problem is if you get a lot of slow zones in a race and you're the second guy in trying to get your laps in, you might not get all of your laps in and you might have to come back to another one. So
I think that's why it's time, not laps.
It's changed to time.
I
now.
believe.
Laps.
I think it is now time. I think it's 2 hours.
Right.
So they count that as an experience because you're unlikely to have code 60 all the way round.
Yeah.
So and that, if anything, it adds to the criteria. If you think about it, if you've got a lot of section in code 60 and you behave accordingly, you've passed even more, haven't you?
Correct. So Roxy, you're absolutely right. It isn't a simple case of saying, "Hello, I'm a driver. I really like to compete here."
Who was that then? Who was that in person?
That was a driver.
Oh, okay. That was a driver.
A driver. That's how all drivers talk. That's why you can't get a drive. And
what are you saying? He's not down to ability then?
No, it's how they sound.
I've been getting wrong all these years. God, you heard it here first.
So we're going to swap out Bruce Jones for Johnny Palmer for a little while, just to get him up to speed, because he and Peter will be taking you through the top qualifying. So Palmer, who is very happy, JP's very happy today, because in the press room,
yes,
it was what for lunch?
Well, you didn't see the currywurst.
I did.
You did. Okay.
Yeah.
There was schnitzel. There was schnitzel as well. But for me today, I actually favoured currywurst over schnitzel. I'm sorry.
You might not get that choice again before the end of the week.
Yeah, but someone's going to be selling schnitzel somewhere on the Grand Prix track, well, either professionally or perhaps cooked to an amateur level. But I'm willing to dive in there and see what you get.
You could always go to the Dottinger fuel station on your way in tomorrow.
To the Tankstelle.
The Tankstelle.
And get a schnitzel in a bun.
Schnitzel in a bun.
So tonight, live on Radio Show, it is German Food Week.
It's always German Food Week when we're here. it's part of the experience. Our Austrian correspondent was querying whether it's real schnitzel. Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I can say the restaurant on Wednesday night was veal schnitzel, and I'm prepared to say that is as near as makes no difference to Wiener Schnitzel and what we
You
have.
said real schnitzel?
Real. Wiener. Vienna Schnitzel. Or Wiener Schnitzel. So, Johannes, we tried our best for you earlier in the week. around the side of the track at the moment, barely an inch to be given. People pressing right up to the catch fencing. And remember, it still is only Friday. There will be more people coming in tomorrow. Unlike many 24-hour races, where the end of the race is the emotion from the teams and that shared experience with the spectators at the track and further afield. The start of this race is something to behold. The formation lap here, the crowd are allowed over the barriers all the way around the Nordschleife, and they stand at the edge of the track and show their appreciation for their heroes and heroines as they come through. It's an extraordinary thing to see. The first year that I saw it, I thought, oh, well, that's it then. We're not getting this race off on time. They're never going to clear that off by the time. No, everybody was gone. I was talking to Taylor Hagler about it, one of the Brian Herter Autosport drivers in the Hyundai. They're over from the States, and saying, are you starting the car? And she said, oh, I don't know yet. We haven't kind of decided that. She said, why? I said, because you will have people on the side of the track. So don't be alarmed at that. And she said, what, so I'll have to drive through people? I said, no, they'll be respectful. Yeah. They'll stand at the edge.
Just think Group B rallying.
It's not quite that bad, where people
a bit slower.
Used to want to touch the car, yes.
Yeah. I can have a little experience of that. My first experience of this race, and that start, all the build-up, you say quite rightly, there was a slight administrative issue with our car. Genuinely, I'm not really sure what the issue was, but it was 240 or 260 cars took part in those days, the start of the race. And I was sent out first, and we were told, complete the Grand Prix loop. Yeah. And as you get to the end, which now should be in Schmidt's curve, the marshal will decide whether they'll decide, and the race officials will have all informed the marshal whether he points left or right as to which way you go and go back in, or carry on to the Nordschleife. Now, I had this view of that I felt I'd probably go left anyway, that I think Instinct would have taken over and just gone left anyway, and thought, well, at least to get a lap in. Yeah. As it just so happened, something else failed on that outlap, and we were first reserve. And we literally, you drove up to this in this Mitsubishi Evo, and they went, yeah, that way. Like, great, we're into the race. And that's it, straight into the race, and we're on. We're like, fantastic. Rutronic Porsche, I think that's
made it back.
Is that Dottinger Hohe?
Yeah,
I think it is. Yeah, it's Tiergarten almost.
It's
how close can you get and stop there?
Well, he's just come in. He's just on the exit of where the tourist laps come out. If you've paid your money on your ring card, Julian Andler beginning to slacken off his belts. I don't think that car's going very much further. And the Rutronic Racing number 96 yellow and blue Porsche. Johnny Palmer has ground to a halt. We did have a puncture early on this lap, but that was well before Bergwerk, so he's done what? Third of a lap, half a lap,
Yeah. Somewhere in between the two, perhaps. Still in contact, I think, with the team, just about. Radio signal will be healthy along there, but just a job to stay off the racing line because of the twists and turns. Not so bad, I suppose, through Kesselchen and Klostertal, although it's so fast through there, and there will have been white flags warning cars of its location. But if you catch it in the wrong place, just like that GT4 Aston Martin did, picking up the dust as it worked its way by, and the whole run down the Dottinger Hohe nearly completed. It hasn't quite got to Antonius Bucher, which is that very fast left-hander underneath the bridge, and now the first of a couple perhaps of intervention vehicles arriving on the scene now to aid the Frenchman. This is not the preparation that Rutronic will have wanted, though, heading into top qualifying later on tonight from 5:30. It's an easy fix. It's just how quickly they're going to get the car back. Yeah, because it may not be within this session. 21 minutes still to go.
The GT2, one of two GT2s in the SPX category for Mercedes AMG, went off at Adnar Forest area. Was, as my translation says, but was slipped in the Adnar Forest area, but was able to continue the journey. I like that translation.
Very quaint.
Yeah, yes. So almost poetic, isn't it? Let's take some quotes from drivers that's been out there. Mike Rockenfeller, it's always fun to drive the Nordschleife. We're not entirely happy with the car. We've been struggling with the balance right from the start. That's on the Audi GT3 Evo 2, the number 40 car. The 563, this was the Porsche Cayman S that had the problem yesterday in the first qualifying session. They've got the Porsche back on track, and Daniel Zorg telling us in the pits the car was quite badly damaged at the front. We stayed up until 2:30 overnight, then continued this morning. We're hoping that the drivers will complete all their laps and we can get the race start tomorrow. Each driver has to do 2 flying laps, not 2 laps around the Nordschleife, but 2 laps. And the Porsche Cayman CB12 in VT3, the number 300 car, is off, and I think facing the wrong direction at the top of the Vauxhall. Yes, it is, just before the Yokohama Bridge. Ooh, I don't like... There's nothing worse than seeing cars coming towards you at speed when you're in a racing car. And I speak of what I know, my first ever car race. I got tipped into a spin, coming to a rolling start. Coming to the end of the first lap of a race at Croft Circuit, and watched all the cars going past me.
They should at least be hard on the brakes at that point. But if Erik Ullström, the Swedish driver, has found his way into the gravel, then equally somebody else can. Because if you start to lose it on the brakes out of Schwedenkreuz, that very fast left-hander, and then need to slow things down for Arenberg, there's already an intervention vehicle there as well. That seems like a very quick response indeed. Intervention vehicle number 5, Mercedes, has arrived on the scene and deliberately parked up the curb there to protect the line of fire, if you like. And that should be, Peter Mackay, a relatively quick tow. But again, this is all about trying to cover things safely, because you can fly round Schwedenkreuz into the braking area for Arenberg. You need to be warned a long way back that there is a car in grief in the stones there.
Absolutely, you do need warned before you've come into Schwedenkreuz, because it's so big commitment through there. You know, over 250 k's an hour for the fastest cars. So yeah, definitely, and that is one thing that the race control team do a great job of warning the drivers. And if they're coming into a slow zone, there is a degree of irony for a Swedish driver to go off just after Schwedenkreuz, of course, the Swedish cross.
Indeed.
Now, we taken over from the conversation from Snowy and Bruce and John about the Porsche balance of performance has been the big chat overnight, with 20 kilos added, a little bit of a change to the rake, more rake added to the car, more wing angle added, but a wider restrictor. And we might not really know the true picture until we get into top qualifying a little bit later on, but we can draw a few sort of findings from it. Interestingly, the Manthey car, the number 911 Grello, has got slower effectively. Last night, Frederick Makowiecki did an 8:13.4. This session, their best lap is an 8:18. However, when you look at their sister cars, you look across at Dynamic Porsche running the Pirelli tyre, interestingly, car number 54, they found 4 seconds with that additional weight on and with that additional wing angle. So, I mean, finding 4 seconds is quite a lot around here. Likewise, Rutronic have found exactly the same amount of time. They've gone from an 8:19 in both sessions yesterday to an 8:15 this time around. So for Porsche fans around the circuit and listening and watching in sound and vision, all might not be lost. Like we say, we do not see things that race control do.
Well, that's the thing for me, is that we don't know what the aim of the game for these Porsche teams was yesterday. They may have been not going for lap speed. It might be trying to tune the car up to be good over a stint. This session, only an hour and 15 minutes on the same day as top qualifying, is more important, I think, to go as fast as you can on the full circuit. So there's an element of that as well. But yeah, when we were thinking, more weight, that's a downer. Adjusting rake, that's a downer. Oh, they do get a little bit of positivity with the change of restrictor. And the balance of it has actually, well, seemingly on the face of it, given them time. There was a quick spin there for Porsche number 563 on the Grand Prix track. So 563.
SRS Team Sorg Rennsport.
From the V6 class, which is the highest CC, highest cubic capacity within the V division, between 3 and 3.5 litre. And there are 5 cars in that class. They are all Porsches, 2 of which are 911 Carreras. And there are 3 Caymans, 2 Cayman S's and 1 Cayman GTS. But that was a Cayman S for Heinz-Jürgen Kroner. A couple of Mexican drivers in that as well. Javier Lamadrid Jr., Lamadrid Sr., and Ugo Vincenzi, the Italian driver. So 4 guys in that Porsche. Meanwhile, the number 81 BMW having a stop in pit road. Car 81 moving again. That's one of the 2 GT Tyre Motorsport by WS Racing BMW M4s. They both entered into SP8T, the team meaning turbocharged, for that straight 6 on both of the M4s. Bjorn Griesemann in the 227 Toyota Supra, I thought was a little slow into the Vidal chicane, but no, that's pretty good speed for a GT4 SP10 car, deciding not to turn left and heading for the Sabine Schmitz curve, and instead right around the hairpin, the Hyundai N Kera, as it's called this weekend, the curver, and back onto the main straight. Still a bit of a task, isn't it, to complete the lap that way, because you have to thread your way through 3 tyre bales, and they're quite narrowly positioned as well.
Quick one from the Twitter account of Porsche Motor Racing. Is there a driver minimum drive time for the race? How does this work with teams who have 3 drivers versus 4 drivers? That's Paul, who's tweeted at RSL Studio, RSL_Studio, using the hashtag RSLN24. Peter Mackay has been greedily consuming the rules and regulations and the supplementary regs. There is a maximum amount of time that a driver can do, and I know that there's a mandated rest period, even if you're in 2 cars. We talked about this a little bit last night, about when you get out of the driver's seat to when you can get back in, and I think that's half the drive time that you've done. So if you've just done 2 hours, you've got to have an hour off, regardless of which car. But what about minimum drive time for the car to be, or the driver to be classified?
Well, the maximum drive time per stint is 2 hours, and then you must have a rest of at least an hour before jumping back in any car.
Right. Other than your hire car.
I was about to say, maybe you'll jump in your hire car to go to the hotel. Minimum drive time during the race, I have to say I'm not sure on that one. I'm not sure if it is mandated. We did see 2 years ago Lars Kern being named on the entry list for Manthey Racing with Kevin Estre, Michael Christensen and Matteo Cairoli, but Lars Kern did not drive. His planned stints were when we were under red flag conditions. Correct. For the fog, so the way it worked out, it meant that Lars wasn't classified as a winner because he hadn't driven. So apologies, that's one gap in my knowledge there, I must admit. But with the SP9 cars, with the top category cars, they're just, more often than not, they're loaded with pro drivers who all want their equal share anyway. Nobody wants to be shortchanged, that's for sure.
I think classified in a car, JP, I think you've got, is it an hour you've got to do?
I almost wanted to say an hour, but I want to check that before saying so. One thing I will mention is this 3-driver lineup in this race is so new. I just looked back at the results of the 2021 race. There wasn't a single SP9 car that ran with a trio. They were all foursomes or more. I mean, lower down the order, some ran with 5 as well. So it's, I mean, at Le Mans, you can't run with anything other than 3 drivers. But this place, I think because of the concentration level required, the intensity of the traffic that you're encountering every single lap, it was always advisable to run with 4 drivers and make sure you then get your rest period. But now, I mean, it's almost like a 50-50 split in SP9 between 3 and 4 driver teams. I think newer driver changes, so I mean, I understand the mechanics of it in a sense, but
I think one of the things, and we've got recovery out at the Porsche Cayman that was stranded on the circuit. That was, I think, the 563. Certainly, that was going slowly on the Grand Prix track, but it's got. No, sorry, excuse me, it was the 300. It's the Arenberg area in the gravel as a result of a spin. It's out of that area there now. That's the number 300 CB12 Porsche Cayman S that we were talking about earlier on. Well, we'll try and dig that out for you for later on.
Interesting, some personal bests, 4 personal best sector times coming in on this lap for Frederic Makowiecki in the Manthey Porsche. And remember, that's on combined time, so this could be a hot lap here from Fred Makowiecki. Johnny.
It's not done on time. I've just done a quick word search through the regulations.
Well done.
Minimum laps during the race.
Yeah, that makes
All the
sense.
drivers must complete the minimum of 15 laps during the race. So that's 2
2 hours,
stints,
yeah.
isn't it? 2 hours, yeah.
Wow.
That was in SP9, yeah.
2 and a bit, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, usually, yeah. Well, there we go. Johnny Palmer, quick on the draw there.
Control F is always
Control
my friend.
F, yes,
F for friend,
absolutely,
fine.
absolutely, great work. And yeah, I mean, looking at the sector times at Manthey Porsche, again, 4 personal best sectors. So, and problem for Manthey coming up over. Coming up over the start-finish line to the left-hand side of the cones, the hazard warning lights are on. The car is crawling in front of our commentary position.
Do you remember we saw this yesterday?
I wonder if it's a puncture. The rear left. Left.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, rear left. So that's now 3 Porsche punctures we've seen so far in these sessions over the last 24 hours. And
Down to the rake adjustment.
oh, Johnny.
Straight in there.
Is that a can of worms on the floor that's just been opened?
Wriggling everywhere.
Oh, I know. Oh, they're up in my socks.
Toe in, you know. too
All
much
that's got
toe
to be
in,
rethought,
camber.
hasn't it, surely?
Oof. Now, he's pulled up. Now, not sure how this is going to be seen. So what he's done is he's pulled off in the pit lane exit.
Yeah.
There is a cut through into the back of the paddock there. He, by the way, being Fred Makowiecki, for Manthey EMA, left rear Michelin, must have gone coming down the Dottinger or coming up through Tiergarten and onto the Grand Prix circuit. So he's now talking to the team and he's telling them the car was moving around. It's that classic driver using his hands and pivoting at the wrist. Oh, and now that was that Barbara Adagio he was playing there? Can you hear him? Hang on.
Are you okay?
Yeah, copy.
We pull you back.
Just to see tire fade.
Oh, we cut away just at that point. But
Communication about the tyre. Just as the tyre failed, I think, was the question.
Yes.
Or exactly where was the tyre failing?
Yes, the voice you heard there was that of one of the volunteer marshals. Hang on, let's have a listen.
Just pull it. Go ahead.
Meantime, another problem for a Porsche. This time, the red and white.
Combe Ledegar, Huber.
Yeah, number 25, red, white and blue car, the Huber Motorsports that he shares with Lars Kern and Romain Dumas and Dennis Fetzer. It's a strong lineup in SP9 Pro. Is that another puncture?
Oh, well.
Not on the left side, but we can't see the right at the moment. Left-hand indicator flashing. Possibly all 4 on the hazard switch. But again, another Porsche on the Grand Prix track awaiting recovery with 6 or so minutes to go. This car 29th fastest when you combine all 3 qualifying sessions together. Fred Makowiecki's 911 Manthey Porsche is now being pulled backwards. Not quite wrong way down pit road, but into that little safe area where intervention vehicle number 1, well, is helping out, in fact. You can gain access to the paddock there, but it's going to be tough to open those gates because the fans have quickly assembled to get sight of one of the big favourites, perhaps, for this weekend.
Well, when we were walking around the paddock earlier, the Manthey garage was by far the garage filled with the most, or awning I should say, was filled with fans, all in the Manthey Grello merchandise as well. I mean, I've seen lots of especially young fans around the circuit with Kevin Estra caps on and things like that as Frederick Makowiecki climbs out of the car and will inspect the rear left there, and all the fans waving at him, and he's saying, hello everyone, sorry that not out there putting in that fast time. He was on a fast lap there, was Makowiecki. 4 personal best sectors for that car across all 3 sessions, and their best lap time of all 3 sessions an 8:13. So, oh my word! So we've got now a Falcon Porsche pulled over at the side of the road. Now remember,
tyre manufacturer.
Yeah, so we've had 3 Michelin, because most of the Porsches are on Michelins, but the Falcons are obviously on Falcon tyres. We don't know if they're all tyre failures. We do not know that, but we will certainly try and find out for you folks in the break between now and top qualifying 1. Let's listen.
Hang on.
I wouldn't say debris. There was a tire there, actually a dead animal there, but no real carbon fiber or something. You never know. Or we have an issue with the reliability of the rear axle. I don't know, too much tire wear.
This is
a tyre.
It's another tyre. And Nico Menzel saying that there was some tyre debris that I've been through. Hang on, let's have another listen. I can turn him up and listen to. I know it's way in the background for you guys watching and listening. This cannot be a coincidence here. And
that was an out lap, by the way, for Nico Menzel.
Oh, was it?
Well, I can't see any of the times that the 44
Right.
has posted so far in this session. Scooting through. Oh, no, beg pardon, hang on. No, I think... no, it has completed laps already, obviously, in the past few sessions, and I think in this one as well. It's difficult to read because often the timing is set up. It's an accumulative session, effectively, 1, 2, and 3, and they're all aggregated together. But it's somewhere in Sector 3, so this is early on in the Nordschleife lap.
Yeah. Run to Kittelbach.
Hoogeiken. Yeah. So he's done Hatzenbach and then come through Hoogeiken and then the run towards Kittelbacher Hohe, as you say, and Flugplatz.
The Oak Forest.
Now, let's get a look on the left-hand side. Yes, rear left again.
Rear left
Rear
again.
left on a Porsche. Sorry, John. Rear left, number 25, Colm Ledegar.
Oh, my goodness.
So we are seeing rear left, and it's 2 different tyre manufacturers, so but it's the same car, same spec of car, and by the looks of things, the same tyre.
Yeah. Certainly that is the case with the Manthey and the Huber cars.
Yeah.
We don't yet know which tyre's gone down on the 44 Falcon machine, but I wouldn't think it's going to be one of the front tyres somehow, so that's narrowed it down by 50%, rear left or rear right. But early on in the lap, what I can't tell you is how far into a stint, in effect, Nico Menzel was, unless I click this button and find out a little bit more for you. Only a couple of minutes to go in the session. Obviously, if you're starting a lap now, then you will be allowed to complete it. And something rather unusual happening at the moment in Porsche land. We know about the adjustment to the weight and the rake, and there's been a lot of work overnight to actually put that into existence. I'd be interested to know from start to finish how long it actually takes to adjust cars according to the latest bulletin.
Did we say where Nico Menzel was? It's just beyond
Hoogeiken?
Yes, and just beyond the Flugplatz.
Oh,
sorry.
after Flugplatz as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what the live tick is saying.
I knew it was somewhere in the first sector of the Nordschleife. He completed both of the relatively short sectors on the Grand Prix Strecke and then turned left through Sabine Schmidt's curve and onto the Hatzenbach and pretty much gone through the whole of Hatzenbach as well. Luca Engstler in his number 22 Audi will commence another lap, managed to sneak through with 55 seconds or so still on the clock, and Engstler in the car collection Audi 25th so far in the order. Fastest car remains the number 6 Mercedes Team Bilstein HRT machine then of Arjun Maini amongst others. And that car is circulating again, and on a quick lap, actually. We don't know who's in that. For some reason, the driver ID is just not showing anybody right now. Could well be Arjun Maini. Green through Sector 2, green through Sector 3, so he must have skipped by... Has he gone by that affected area where the Porsche was off? The 44 was sort of tucked in away from the racing line, so that might mean that they've been able to withdraw the yellow flags there. Another car to look out for is the number 20 of Daniel Kylwitz, the new Ferrari 296 from Wochenspiegel Team Monschau. That's just on an absolute best on the Grand Prix Strecke. So car 20 heading down the hill and then back up the other side now to complete a Grand Prix lap. Let's hope this is a full lap to really get an idea of the 296's pace.
Well, all the slow zones, code 60s and yellow flags are clear, so at the moment it is clear for Daniel Kylwitz in that beautiful chrome and red Wochenspiegel Team Monschau
and he's turning
Ferrari
left.
by Rinaldi, another all-time best.
That 44 Falcon Porsche, and thanks to James Muscat, sorry, I was trying to do something else rather than looking on my stint there. That was lap 4 of a stint.
Excellent.
For the 44.
Okay. Well, so looking at, of course, this qualifying session for everyone who's not in SP9 and SPX, it sets the grid positions. One of the most hotly contested classes in this field is the Cup 2 class for Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars of the 992 variety. And on his last flying lap, Tobias Müller puts it on pole position by just a tenth of a second across 8.5 minutes. 8 minutes 29.437. Tobias Müller sets the provisional pole time in that class, but there are other Cup 2 cars on a run at the moment, including Moritz Krantz in the K. Kramer racing car, and we know how fast Moritz can be. This is an incredible lap from Daniel Kylwitz, though. 3 absolute best sectors in a row, then a personal best. He's 2 seconds down on the best lap time of the week so far, but he's flying.
Impressive stuff, no doubt about it, and I think this is a great opportunity to do it. Next session is where it all really matters, with the two-level top qualifying session, and they will have been tuning this car up through the course of the hour and 15-minute session just to find out what the Ferrari can do. Nice bit of curb there, but not too much for Daniel Kylwitz, who's just on the very rapid Sector 4 sector now, and is heading through those difficult right-handers in the middle of Sector 5, so not far away from... Where are we now in the lap? It's further around than I thought.
Flansgarten and down towards Schalbenschwarz.
We're almost at Schalbenschwarz, aren't we?
And what's going on here is, checker flag is out, but what's going on here is there is one Pro-Am spot in top qualifying that you can get ahead of time. Now, at the moment, it's had a stronghold by the number 6 Bilstein Mercedes, who have been so quick. They have been the fastest car overall all week. So Daniel Kylwitz and Luka Ludwig, both in Ferraris, funny enough, both in the Pro-Am class, they're going for that spot. They want that spot, and they are going flat out for it.
Yeah. That's what was confusing me, is concentrating on Luka Ludwig, who is much further around the track. He was already dealing with Flansgarten, and he's 0.045 of a second away on almost the predicted lap time that car number 19 is about to complete on the Dottingerhor now and heading for Antonius Bucher, whereas Daniel Kylwitz doesn't go purple or green through Sector 5, but still isn't hanging around. He's maybe lost a couple of seconds, though, there. It's a 1 minute 49.2, whereas the car beneath him on the timing screen has managed a 147.9, so that might have really scuppered Kylwitz's effort. However, what about Luka Ludwig? Pole sitter last time around will cross the line now, and it's an 8:12.443. So 3/4 of a second away from that time, but straight up to be fastest across all 3 sectors.
So that's qualified him through directly now into Q2.
That's basically bumped Bilstein Mercedes off, unless the Bilstein Mercedes lap that it's on right now goes faster again.
So this is the
wow.
This is the dedicated.
This is the Pro-Am shootout.
Pro-Am 14th position.
You still have to do it in
out of
Q1
ninth.
though. You still have to do it in Q1, don't you?
No, they're going
it
for the
goes straight
fastest
through to
Pro-Am.
The fastest Pro-Am is guaranteed Q2 position 14, and the time it comes from the best of Q1, Q2 or Q3.
Fair enough.
So this is a direct qualification situation.
Mini
for
shootout.
a Pro. That is a Pro-Am. Is that a Pro-Am car, the 19? Are we sure?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a typical Luca Ludwig. His father, Klaus, has had more pole positions here than anyone in history, 6. Luca has already had 2, if my memory serves me right. 1, excuse me. So he is going for his second this time out, but you can't get pole unless you're in Q2, and that is the best lap we've seen all week. The first 8:12 we've seen all week. Amazing stuff. And on Goodyear tyres with the new Ferrari. So we've been looking at the establishment manufacturers on the established tyre. Remember, Michelin have won 8 of the last 10 years. But Ferrari, the new 296 GT3 on the Goodyear tyre with Luca Ludwig on board, fastest. But what can Kalvitz do? Is he close enough? I don't know if he is to factor in that very hotly contested
He's got a clear
place.
track ahead of him and around him, guys. So the opportunity of traffic slowing him down, it isn't there. He's hanging it out as he starts the long run back down through Flans Garden, through the Stefan Bellof S and to the Schwalbenschwanz. He's well through the lap now.
Arjun Maini has completed his lap in the number 16 Bilstein Mercedes, the car that's been at the top of the timesheets in every session so far. He did an 8:14.1, a second off his best. So Luca Ludwig's number 19 Racing 1 Ferrari is the fastest time of the week, and by being a Pro-Am car, it gets that wild card effectively into top Q2.
Just again, if you weren't with us earlier on and you didn't catch it, 13 cars were automatically or have qualified, shall we say, directly into Q2. We named them all for you. The 14th position of 19 in Q2, which will place those top 19 cars on the grid, was reserved for the fastest Pro-Am car in Q1, Q2 or Q3. The other 5 positions will be fought over in the next qualifying session, top qualifying Q1 as it's called. This is going to be tight for Kalvitz. He's not a million miles off this. 9, 10, 11, 12. He's missed it. 14.8. Good lap. And that'll move that car up the rankings. That'll take him to 9th position.
These new Ferraris are quite quick, aren't they?
They are.
As it doesn't improve his time, he's already got a 14.7 on the board.
We also saw in that session the Fricadelli Ferrari, which have been very calm and under the radar all week so far. Nicky Katzberg has been the fastest driver in that car so far in each session. He notched the time down to an 8:14.2. So what we've clearly seen pace across those 3 Ferraris, and of course the cars aren't any different. An SB9 Pro car and a Pro-Am car,
exactly
identical. It's just based on the drivers, and of course the 2 drivers that have been at the wheel there are the shoes of those cars.
Yeah, well, just because Kalvitz misses out on the dedicated Pro-Am spot for Q2, it doesn't mean he can't finish in the top 5 overall
Correct.
in Q1.
Yes.
So he's got another stab at it later
Correct,
on
Johnny.
in the day.
Absolutely right, but don't forget, if he gets through from Q1, he can't then drive into Q2.
Yeah.
So with a Pro-Am car, they have then got to make some difficult decisions.
True.
But even if they don't,
you're in.
So the worst you can be is 19th.
That's right.
That's right, yeah.
The absolute worst you can be. Let's run through, with the session now finished, let's run through the pole sitters in the other categories as they stand. The Schnitzelarm Racing Mercedes leads SPX, the 222. Mullner Motorsport, the 123 Cup 2 Porsche. That's the car that Alex Brundle was drafted into late on. They are the best of the Porsche 992 GT3 Cup classes. 4 Motors Bio concept car, number 320. Will be on pole for alternative fuels. Durham Motorsports Aston Martin, number 67, is on pole for SP10 GT4. Cup 3, SRS Zorg Rennsport in the 182. Cayman is on top. Hyundai Motorsports TCR, number 830, tops the TCR category. SP40, Subaru Technica International STI is at the top of that SP40 class with a 114. 152 SP6, that car, just let me skim down to that one. Where were we? 152 RPM Racing, 54th position for the Porsche 991 Cup car. In 60th position, the best of the SP8Ts is number 81, the GT Tyre BMW M4 GT4 G82. RPM Racing have claimed SP7 pole with their number 151 Porsche GT3 Cup 991 car. MSC Zinzig im ADAC have captured pole for SP3T, 80th overall for the Audi TTS. Then it's Team Mathol Racing, AV in the number 300 car, and that is the Porsche Cayman SCB12. That was the car that was in the gravel in that session. So they actually did not improve in that session. I think that was from an earlier time in the week. Then it's the Adrenaline Motorsport BMW 240i, that's number 246, wins the pole in 91st position for the 240i class. Then it's Schmickler Performance powered by Ravenol, that's the best of the V6 runners, in 90th position, a Porsche 911 Carrera. Adrenaline Motorsport have another pole sitter in the shape of the BMW 330 in the VT2 rear-wheel drive category, and VT2 front-wheel drive is the 527, which is the Hyundai Driving Experience, 99th position for them in that car, and that is the i30N. So all the 20 pole sitters within the top 100, and for all bar the front of the field, that is now set. So the times that are set within classes, if you go on to the website, those are set in stone. What we have yet to set, Johnny Palmer, SP9 and SPX. We now know 14 of the cars that will be battling out for overall pole.
Yeah.
We'll find out 5 more later on this afternoon.
Yeah, and there are actually 5 more Pro-Am cars that could potentially bag
Indeed.
spots, but it seems unlikely at this stage. But yes, there are a lot of cars with not too many spaces now available, so some disappointed customers. And of course, if you don't break into Q2, and you're therefore from 20th position and backwards, Q1, top qualifying Q1, will decide where you start on the grid, John.
No doubt some talking to be done from Porsche and the Porsche teams. Multiple punctures in that session. Left rear seems to be the tyre that is vulnerable, Peter, and well, that's not what you want to see on any circuit. But here, that if that is a safety issue, those BOP changes, including the rake change, which would have necessitated ride height and suspension setting changes at the back, that may have to be revisited. People asking, can that be done? Anything can be done.
Yeah, there's a lot to happen, and we've only got 2.5 hours until we go into top qualifying 1, so it's going to be busy for the next couple of hours as well. Lots to get into, but I can't wait for this shootout.
Well, interesting times. I think we're going to have to go across into the paddock and have a chat with some of the teams, particularly the Porsche teams. We have the 2 top qualifying sessions for you. 5 spots in the pole shootout up for grabs in top qualifying Part 1 coming up in 2.5 hours live in sound and vision. Join us then. Bye-bye.